don't call it the Bay Bridge Series anymore. Some ad reps in one of the marketing departments are now calling it the Highway 80 Clash. And whether the Giants and A's fans like it or care, it's all a part of Major League's so-called rivalry week. That's next on Curveballs and Changeups, a baseball podcast straight out of Sacramento. I'm Steve Harmon, and this is a podcast for Giants and A's fans and baseball fans in general. I played the game, once hit a grand slam home run in an over 30 baseball league. I covered the Hum Baby Giants and the Bash Brothers A's as a sports writer in the 1980s and early 90s. I've been a baseball fan since 1967 when a kid down the block introduced me and my brothers to the game of baseball. The convergence of these two teams is perfect, at least for this podcast. As you all know, I've been doing separate episodes for the Giants and A's, but for this mid-May series, I can get you all together for a breakdown of what to expect from these longtime Bay Area rivals who now are just a freeway ride away from each other. Before I do, I'm going to drop my trivia question right here. Name the two players with the same name who played respectively for the Giants and A's. In other words, two different players, same name. One played for the A's, the other played for the Giants. I'll have my answer at the end of this episode. So this is rivalry week across the country. You have crosstown or interstate matchups like the Angels and Dodgers in the Freeway Series, Cubs and White Sox in the Crosstown Classic, Indians and Reds in the Ohio Cup, Yankees and Mets in the Subway Series, Cardinals and Royals in the I-70 Series, and so on. Some aren't exactly natural rivalries, like the Seattle Mariners and San Diego Padres, or the Boston Red Sox and Atlanta Braves, though you could at least say the Braves did originate in Boston. Then you've got the A's and Giants. Some are calling it the landlord-tenant rivalry. Ouch! I just saw Highway 80 t-shirts with a generic bridge that could stand for the Bay Bridge or the Sacramento's Tower Bridge. That's being torched all over social media. The two teams never really were rivals on the field because the league separated them. The first time they met, aside from spring training games, was in the 1989 World Series. Remember, fans of both teams were hoping they would meet in 1971 when the Giants won the National League West and the A's won the AL West. But the Giants lost to the Pittsburgh Pirates in the playoffs, and the A's lost to the Baltimore Orioles in the AL playoffs that year. So it would be 18 years from then before they'd actually meet up for the first time. And we all remember how the Loma Prieta earthquake shattered the peace, the lives, and, yes, the 1989 World Series. The A's already had a 2-0 lead in the series when play was stopped for 10 days. By the time they resumed the series, the A's brought back their number 1 and number 2 starting pitchers, Dave Stewart and Bob Welch, and the 4-game sweep was on. So even when they finally did meet up there in the World Series, I don't think people really got a sense of a rivalry matchup out of that. So the rivalries were more between the fans, even when interleague play began in 1997, than the players. I mean, the true rivalry, folks, is the Giants and Dodgers. And the A's probably, you would have to say, have more of a rivalry with their own West Coast or Western Division rivals like the Mariners and the Angels. But in terms of the rivalry between the fans, the A's fans couldn't stand Giants fans and vice versa. Rarely did you see a fan of both teams. A lot of fans ridiculed those who wore hats or shirts designed to include both teams. For the record, the A's lead the series 76-72. And it'll be interesting to see how many A's fans show up this weekend in San Francisco. There's such an ambivalence over their former team, whether to root for them or even follow them in Sacramento. The bitterness over the A's departure to Sacramento on their way to Las Vegas is probably going to take a lot of the edge off of what was a healthy fan rivalry. But if you followed both teams like I do, there is some intrigue to this series. It seems like a moment for both teams to measure themselves against each other. I'm not sure you'll be able to draw conclusions about who they are, but it has enough of a compelling storyline to hold your attention. I mean, how are we supposed to view this series? Are the A's the upstarts and the Giants the more established veteran team? Yeah, well, the A's do have a more youthful roster, and they've got the leading Rookie of the Year candidate and another 2 top prospects just called up, and they're right there in impact positions. Everything the A's do passes through the lens of what potential they're showing for the future. The punishing losses they've taken at the hands of the Dodgers, Yankees, Cubs, and Mets are reminders of how far off they may be to reaching their potential. Though the A's will tell you they're playing for the here and now and believe they can make a playoff push this year. They're at 500 on the season after losing 19-2 last night to the Dodgers. But they're sitting at 22-22 in fourth place and just 2 games behind first place Seattle. Here's what Bob Melvin, the Giants manager, said. He managed the A's, of course, for 11 years. Quote, "They have a really good team, and especially some of the young hitters that they brought to the big leagues. I've talked to some of the managers who've played against them. They are a handful." Conte did not comment after last night's game against the Dodgers about the upcoming series, and I can see why. He was probably not feeling that great after his team's big loss. The Giants have a number of veterans who believe they have the right mix to make a run at the postseason, but they've been plagued by early season slumps by some of their top hitters and inconsistent overall play. They've actually played under 500 balls since they started the season with an 8-1 record. That's 17-18 they've gone since that start. But overall, the Giants are 25-19. They're 4 games out of the first place Dodgers, 3 behind the second place San Diego Padres. But they're at the point in the season where they don't want to let those 2 teams separate out anymore. So neither team is playing inspiring baseball right now. The Giants have lost 9 of their last 15, and the A's have lost 8 of their last 15. The A's knew they were going to go through the gauntlet with the Yankees and Dodgers just before the Giants. They did manage to avoid sweeps, winning once in each of the 2 series with the first-place Yankees and Dodgers. But after a stretch in which they went 13-6 and had really the league talking about them, the A's have lost 3 straight series. The Giants moved to a season-high 10 games over 500 on May 7th, but have lost now 5 of 6, getting swept by the Minnesota Twins and then losing 2 of 3 at home to the Arizona Diamondbacks. So we've got 2 teams stumbling into this rivalry weekend. All right, let's look at the matchups of starting pitchers for the series. It looks like the series is lined up so the A's will be able to throw 2 lefties against the Giants. That's their kryptonite. The Giants are hitting .226 against lefties and are 2-9 against them. It'll be lefty J.P. Sears against Logan Webb tonight, and then lefty Jeffrey Springs against Justin Verlander on Sunday. In between, on Saturday, the A's will have righty ace Luis Severino going against rookie Landon Roop. Sears is 4-2 with a 2.80 ERA. He beat the Yankees in his last start, holding them to 1 run in 5 innings. The A's have won 6 of his 8 starts. He's been a picture of consistency. He's also a reverse split pitcher, does better against righties than lefties. That has to do with his command and ability to keep righties off balance with his off-speed stuff and willingness to pitch hard inside to righties. The Giants have problems with pitchers like Sears, especially Willy Adames. Remember what I talked about in a recent episode, resting Willy Adames against lefties? He has a terrible lifetime record against lefties, a reverse split guy. Bob Melvin will not rest him, so he will continue to have to try to fight it in the batter's box. He has a .216 lifetime batting average against lefties in 947 at-bats. That is no small sample, folks. This year, he's continuing the trend, hitting just .143, going only 7 for 47. That's, 1 hit in almost every 7 at-bats against lefties. But Adames seems to be making adjustments in the batter's box that could get him going. It already has, actually, against right-handers. He's shortened his leg kick and getting a softer landing for his front foot. And you can see more balance in his swing. Since he made that adjustment, Adames has gone 4 for 12 with 3 doubles and a home run. But we'll see if his shorter leg kick applies to lefties, too. As for Logan Webb, he comes into this game with a 4-3 record, though his 2.60 ERA belies the mediocrity of his one-loss number. He seems to enjoy taking on the mantle of the rivalry. He pitches great against the A's, at least lately. He shut them out on a 5-hitter last year. Over the last 3 starts against the A's, he's given up only 3 runs in 22 innings. But it was a different story early in his career. His first 3 starts against the A's, he allowed 13 earned runs in 12 1/3 innings. All right, Saturday, Luis Severino goes up against Landon Roop. Both Severino and Roop are looking to pick up the pieces from a couple of bad starts. Severino has given up 12 earned runs on 13 hits over his last 10 innings. A lot of that went against his old team, the Yankees. But he's 1-4 with a 4.70 ERA, which doesn't quite reflect how good he's been for the A's, but it shows that he's had a couple of bad outings. Roop is 2-3 with a 4.95 ERA, and he's trying to get out of a rut of early knockouts. He hasn't gotten past 5 innings over his last 4 starts, and he's given up 12 earned runs over 18 innings in those 4 starts. There's been a lot of talk about removing Jordan Hicks from the rotation, given a 6.50 ERA, but Roop may be on the same bubble. Watch out for how he does in this start and what the response might be from management. Sunday, the A's go with lefty Jeffrey Springs against Justin Verlander. Springs leads the A's with 5 wins. He's 5-3 with a 4.27 ERA, coming off his best start of the year since his first start. He went 7 innings for his first time of the year, threw over 100 pitches for the 3rd time this year, and was the only A's pitcher to beat the Dodgers this week. And Springs goes against Verlander, who has been the unluckiest pitcher on the Giants, if not in the National League. He's still stuck on 262 lifetime wins, no closer to his goal of 300 wins than when he signed with the Giants this winter. But though he's 0-3 with a 4.31 ERA, Verlander has allowed just 9 earned runs in his last 29 1/3 innings. That's a 2.76 ERA. That is among the elite, folks. He's got no support, and he's had 2 sure wins blown by the bullpen. Thanks, Ryan Walker. So it'll be Webb, Roop, and Verlander against Jacob Wilson, the slashing rookie hitter, and the power bats of Tyler Soderstrom, Shea Langoliers, Brent Rooker, Lawrence Butler, and Nick Kurtz. And don't forget the clutch hitting of Miguel Andujar, and even of second baseman Luis Urias. And it'll be Sears, Severino, and Springs against the hot bats of Jung-Hoo Lee, Elliot Ramos, especially Elliot Ramos. He is on fire. Wilmer Flores, who's cooled down just a little bit in his power numbers, though he continues to sprinkle base hits in once in a while. And Adames, while veterans Matt Chapman and Mike Yastrzemski actually have gotten into little funks to try to restart their bats. Lamont Wade Jr. and Patrick Bailey will be searching for answers to questions about whether they will ever hit again, though Lamont Wade has actually gotten his swing back a little bit. You can see he's going the other way. His swing is a little more, just a little more consistent. Bailey, I don't know if we'll ever have an answer for him. All right. Just a quick peek at some of the key players. For the Giants fans, you may not have noticed, Jacob Wilson is the real deal. It's hard to pitch to him because he can hit balls anywhere they're pitched. And it's hard to defend him because he will hit from line to line. He reminds me a lot of Carney Lansford, the right-hander who won a batting title with the Red Sox as a 24-year-old. The lifetime .290 hitter with more than 2,000 hits. Played his last 10 years of a 15-year career with the A's. He was fidgety with his hands and feet, same as Wilson. For A's fans, you've probably heard a lot about Jung-Hoo Lee. One thing you may not have heard is that he hits left-handed pitchers really well. Remember, he hit 2 home runs off lefty Carlos Rodon in Yankee Stadium. Look for the Jung-Hoo Lee chants, a throwback to the Oakland A's days of spontaneous displays of passion of the fans. All right, there's a lot more that we could go over, but I'm going to go quickly to some analytics to break down the 2 teams. Not doing BABIP or launch angles or spin rates or even pitch framing scores like we did a couple episodes ago. Patrick Bailey still sits in the middle of the pack, nowhere close to the top perch he was on last year, so of course that takes away his value, right? I did do a little deep dive, a little rabbit hole hunting on StatCast. I wanted to see if I could find some patterns on how the Giants and A's go about their business in the batter's box. First, the basics. The A's are the better hitting team. That is obvious. The A's are 5th in hitting among all 30 teams at 261. The Giants are inching up toward the league average of 243. They're at 237. And that was after only a couple of good days of hitting against the Diamondbacks. But the Giants still have outscored the A's in runs per game, 4.75 runs to 4.51 runs. And that has to do with the Giants doing better with runners in scoring position than the A's. The Giants are 5th in the major leagues with runners in scoring positions with a 278 batting average. That's 96 hits in 345 at-bats. The A's aren't so much worse. They're 9th in the major leagues at 264 with 90 hits in 341 at-bats. But the A's are better in runners in scoring positions with 2 outs. They're 6th in the majors, hitting 269. And the Giants, who were once at the top of the heap in this category, are now 10th, hitting 245. So they have started to squander opportunities with 2 outs and runners in scoring positions lately. Okay, a little deeper. Where are the Giants vulnerable? My suspicion is that they don't protect the plate, especially on 0-2 counts. That is actually backed up by the numbers. They're awful on 0-2 counts. And my instinct that the A's go up to the plate hacking, also confirmed. First, the Giants are second worst in the major leagues with a 113 batting average when down to the count 0-2. Only the Cleveland Guardians are worse at 0.99. Now, of course, everybody's bad when they're trying to hit with an 0-2 count. Giants are just particularly bad. They've had just 16 hits in 142 at-bats in that scenario. The major league average is 158. The A's are fifth on 0-2 counts in the major leagues with a 192 batting average. What these stats don't show, and maybe somebody can tell me where I can find them, is how many times on 0-2 counts are the A's and Giants actually taking fastballs down the middle. I see way too much of that. Too much guessing in baseball now, and bad guessing. When you have an 0-2 count, you should not be keyholing. I mean, that's what you do with a 3-1 count. But on an 0-2 count, you have to be up there to protect, to stay up there as long as you can, maybe push the count into a more favorable situation. But when an 0-2 fastball comes at you right down the middle, that is a gift that you cannot give away. The Giants are only one of 8 teams without a home run on an 0-2 count. The other 22 teams have at least one home run. The Red Sox lead with 5 on 0-2 counts. 6 teams have 3 home runs on 0-2 counts. The A's have 2. All right, what about payoff pitches? How do these two teams do on 3-2 counts? The A's are third best in the majors on payoff pitches at 236 with 7 home runs. The Giants are more toward the middle on full counts, not much worse. They're 13th in the major leagues with a 202 batting average and 6 home runs. But so what that number shows you is that hitters are actually very vulnerable on the full count. Pitchers have the advantage on 3-2. Now, talk about the leverage counts. Neither the Giants nor the A's have been that good at putting themselves in a good spot to get their pitch when they have leverage. The Giants have had only 26 at-bats with a 3-1 count. Typically, that is their best time to get a good pitch. They're hitting 308 in that spot with only 8 hits. That's below the league average of 349 and below the league average of 10 hits with a 3-1 count. The A's are hitting 286 in that situation, and they've had the league average of 10 hits in those spots. The best team with a 3-1 count, no surprise, the Tigers. They're hitting 600. That's 21 hits and 35 at-bats. It's no wonder they have the best record in all of baseball. They are taking advantage of pitch leverage, count leverage. But the swing that defines the A's is the first pitch. They lead the major leagues in base hits on the first pitch with 82. They also lead the league in bats concluded on the first pitch with 251. So they are up there hacking. Their 355 batting average on the first pitch is 10th highest in the major leagues. The Giants are in the middle of the pack on the first pitch batting average at 345, but their 60 hits are 18th most. This tells you the Giants should be going after the first pitch more. The major league average on first pitch balls put in play is 344. And for home runs on first pitches, the league average is 9.5 per team. The Giants have 6. The Dodgers and Angels lead with 17. The A's have the 5th most first pitch homers with 13. So they are jumping on that first pitch, and they are doing well. The A's are also best in the major leagues in leading off innings. They have a 292 batting average with a major league leading 102 hits. So they get their rallies going early. The Giants are near the bottom at 23rd, hitting only 239 leading off. So the question is, what kind of rally can you build after you get your leadoff man on? And if you don't get your leadoff man, as the Giants don't, you're putting pressure on yourself to get it done later in an inning. So that'll be something to watch out for in this series between the Giants and A's. And now, so pitching is where the Giants have the advantage. Or is it? Let's take a look at the numbers. The Giants have a 3.56 ERA, is 8th best in the major leagues. The A's are 4th worst at 4.84. At home, the Giants pitch better, not a surprise, with a 3.15 ERA. But that's only 9th best in the majors. A lot of pitchers feel more comfortable at home. not the A's. They're third worst in the majors at 5.81. But for this series, for the purposes of this series in San Francisco, the more relevant number for the A's is their road pitching ERA, and that is much better. They're 10th in the majors with a 3.88 ERA away. So it's not as much of an advantage for the Giants on the mound as you might think. All right, one last big nugget. The Giants pitchers are the best lockdown relievers in the major leagues from the 7th inning on. They have a 2.10 ERA. Of course, that even includes the blow-ups by Ryan Walker. So take those out, and they're even better. But 7th and 8th inning is one thing. The 9th inning is another for the Giants at this point. The A's are 18th best with a 4.26 ERA. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the Giants just need to get the starting pitcher out and get into that bullpen deep. And for the A's, they need to get the Giants pitchers out early so that they don't have to worry about their high leverage pitchers from the 7th inning on. All right, that's enough of the deep dive. Now I will answer the trivia question I had at the start. Here it is. Here's the question again. Name the two players with the same name who played respectively for the Giants and A's. In other words, two different players, same name. One played with the A's, the other played for the Giants. Drum roll, please. The answer is Steve Ontiveros. Of course, you'll remember that, right? The original Steve Ontiveros played for the Giants from 1973 to 1976. The third baseman whose best year with San Francisco was 1975 when he hit .289 in 108 games. Then he was dealt to the Cubs in 1976 with Bobby Mercer for Bill Madlock. So turns out the deal that sent Bobby Bonds over to the Yankees for Bobby Mercer, the Giants wound up getting Bill Madlock, which is less of a bad deal than maybe you would have thought at the start. Although I will go to my grave thinking that the Giants blew it in dealing away Bobby Bonds. And Steve Ontiveros went on to have two really nice years with the Cubs, hitting .299 and .285 as their full-time third baseman in 77 and 1979. He had a lifetime batting average of .274 with a .365 on-base average, so he was ahead of his time there. But he was out of the game by age 28. 50 years later, he's still kicking around in Bakersfield as a 78-year-old ex-major leaguer. The latter-day Steve Ontiveros was a pitcher who came up with the A's in 1985 as a reliever, and he spent 6 of his 10 years in Oakland. He mixed it up as a starter and reliever, starting 67 of his 179 games with Oakland. In the strike year of 1994, he actually won the ERA title with a 2.65 ERA, and that was even when he started only in 13 of his 27 games that year. And that was also after coming back from arm troubles that had him limited to 35 games over 6 years, and after being out of the game for 2 of those years. He was just one of those guys who wanted to play and play and play. He appeared done as a 34-year-old with the A's in 1985, but he went back to single-A ball in the Angels organization, playing in Lake Elsinore as a 35 and 36-year-old. Then after that, he hung around AAA ball with the Cardinals, Orioles, Brewers, and Rockies. And after all that, he as a 39-year-old, he joined an independent league team, the Valley Vipers in Scottsdale, Arizona, pitching for the old Oakland A's pitcher Bob Welch. And he actually did well enough there to get a call from the Boston Red Sox that year, pitching in 3 games. Then the next year, as a 40-year-old, he hooked on with, yes, full circle, the Oakland A's, as a starting pitcher for their AAA team right here in Sacramento for the River Cats. He had a 7-6 record with a 4.55 ERA. Not bad for an old guy. And he wasn't done yet. When he was released, the New York Mets picked him up to start 7 games to finish the 2001 season in their AAA team in Tidewater. He's 64 now. No word on what senior league he may be playing in now. All right, that's all I have for today. Thank you for tuning in to Sacramento's Curveballs and Changeups with me, your host, Steve Harmon. You can find Sacramento's best baseball podcast on Apple Tunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Odyssey, the podcast app, and wherever else you can listen to podcasts. Please hit the subscribe button so you can get notified when my next podcast is up. I'm also on Twitter, or what some call X, and Threads, and post most of my episodes there. If you see it there, please retweet or repost and tell your friends. It would be great to grow our baseball-loving community. All right, until next time, lay off the slider, low and away.